Now that video games have established themselves as a thriving, albeit occasionally oversaturated medium, there are a handful of things that we've come to understand about them. These are the unwritten and often unspoken things that every gamer just inherently knows to be true of any video game. Even across different franchises and genres, there are some constants, and there's some comfort in knowing a certain color barrel goes boom, or the nuanced meaning behind various nonverbal communications in a multiplayer game. No matter your preferred playstyle, series, or history with games, I'm betting you'll be on board with a bunch of universally known gaming tidbits. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 unwritten rules of gaming everyone knows. Number 10. Go the wrong way first. Speedrunners and gamers who just want to mainline the central story until they hit the end credits can ignore this one, but for the rest of us, especially the completionists among us, well no, you always go the wrong way first. Walk right away from that quest marker and toward the passageway that clearly isn't taking you to the next step of your main quest, because that's where you'll find your collectibles, the best loot, upgrades, and treasure. Not to mention hidden side quests and gear that you might otherwise miss. For completionists, there's no greater agony in video games than realizing you accidentally went the right way and now you can't get back to that extra corridor you skipped or the chest you spied through a gated off area. And so everybody knows you wander down the little side path or the boring looking path so you don't accidentally progress and miss out on the goods. Number 9. Red barrels explode. I'll be honest, there are a couple of video games where red barrels don't explode, and genuinely that is nothing short of unconscionable. Everybody knows if you're playing a shooter, or pretty much any RPG, red barrels explode. Whether they come in the form of a fire extinguisher, conveniently placed red vessel with a flammable symbol, or a gigantic red tanker driving down the road in Far Cry, you can be assured that pelting it with bullets will result in a satisfying and destructive boom. Regardless of the genre, this is an unwritten rule that stands true almost every time in almost every game. If you've ever tried to shoot a red canister in a game and it has not exploded, please name and shame down in that comment section. Number 8. The meaning of nonverbal communication. Not everybody has voice chat, and for those who do, not everybody who loves to sink time into multiplayer games necessarily wants to use it. There are also still plenty of games, especially old school favorites, that might not facilitate voice chat at all. It's fortunate then that those who spent a lot of time in multiplayer games have developed a sort of unspoken shorthand for communicating, even without having voice chat, text, or using certain emotes. Of course, you need to be able to detect the nuances. For example, jumping means yes, follow me, or thanks, depending on context. If you see someone dancing, it is your responsibility to dance with them, and crouching quickly when you haven't killed somebody means you're friendly, while crouching over a body when you have just killed somebody means, well, you know what that means. Of course, sometimes you'll be dealing with trolls who don't abide by these rules, but on the whole, the nonverbal communication works pretty well. Number 7. Be a hoarder. I'm sure somewhere in the world there are gamers who don't hoard every potion, elixir, grenade, and item, telling themselves they shouldn't use it now because they'll surely need it later. But wherever they are, I haven't met any of them. In RPGs particularly, there's an unwritten rule that you really shouldn't use that super-powered, expensive single-use buff potion because who knows what awaits down the track. Of course, this will inevitably result in you finishing most games with an enviable backpack full of just-in-case supplies, but that's just how it goes. It'll be a little embarrassing when you ultimately lose a fight you probably would have won if you just lobbed a few of those precious grenades or downed some healing items, but it's a trap many of us can't help falling into over and over again. The supplementary rule to being a hoarder is if you must sell items, you under no circumstances sell your last of anything, even if it's an item you have never and suspect you will never use. You just never know. Number 6. If you walk into an arena, save. Assuming your video game of choice lets you manually save, you're gonna want to do that as soon as you see a round room with a bunch of chest-high walls and a few too many healing items or supplies. This is a surefire sign that a boss battle is imminent, and you're going to want to immediately stop and save, run a mental scan of the defensible positions in the room, and figure out what you're going to do when you wander 3 steps forward and all hell breaks loose. This rings true for old classics like The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time all the way up to your face-off with Smasher in Cyberpunk 2077. Round rooms are bad news, and every gamer knows it. Unless you're totally overleveled and kitted up to the nines. Then you aren't trapped in there with them, they're trapped in there with you. Number 5. If a character says they've got a bad feeling about anything, save. An addendum to our last entry that is used to great effect in Knights of the Old Republic: if any of your companions or NPC offsiders say they've got a bad feeling about this, or that you're up for a big battle, believe them and pull off a quick save at least. Star Wars popularized the "I've got a bad feeling about this" phrase, and it's handy that video games use it too, so you can have a companion letting you know when things are about to go sideways. Number 4, always check for fall damage. I wonder if this game has fall damage is an important utterance that will be an inevitability for anybody booting up a new action-adventure, RPG, or open-world game. Every game is a little different, and even games in the same series can have different approaches to fall damage. Take Assassin's Creed for example, where you'll be doing a lot of admittedly encouraged falling into soft and conveniently located haystacks. But there will also be more than a couple of buildings you'd like to throw yourself off to get places faster. In Odyssey, in the late game, this isn't such a big deal, as you'll get to a point where you're immune to fall damage. But try to pull the same sick stunt in Origins, and Bayek's gonna be feeling that tomorrow. Naturally, if you're me and listen to that last point, you'll be saving before you jump off that cliff, and saving when you hit the ground, and during, if the game allows. All that to say, it's important to test the limits and controls of a game as soon as you get stuck in. Number 3, if no one sees you stealing, it's not stealing. It doesn't matter if you've decided to play a total bastion of justice, light side Jedi kind of protagonist, stealing is only bad if somebody sees you stealing. And games that punish you for stealing when no one even saw you do it are unfair. Is that a wild generalization? Sure, but who exactly are you hurting when you ransack a peasant's only belongings? I mean, you've got a whole world to save. Priorities. More importantly, if the game's morality system only factors in your giant paragon and renegade choices and not your petty theft, it seems like you should be good to go. So go ahead, gingerly place a bucket over the head of the local occupant and make off with their heirlooms and kitchen supplies like the kleptomaniac raccoon I know you are. Running parallel with this rule is that upon rocking up to a new town replete with homes and businesses, you should take anything that isn't nailed down. Who knows, you might need it for a boss battle later, where you inevitably still won't use it because of the hoarding entry I covered earlier. Number 2, don't kill the chickens. Fool us once, shame on you. Fool us twice, shame on us. Gamers only have to face the retribution of invulnerable multiplying murder chickens once before they leave well enough alone and keep the sharp objects well away from the poultry. I ran into this the other day when I was playing Assassin's Creed Origins, and I was happily taking out hippos and crocodiles, but I saw a chicken and something in my gamer brain said, "Don't do it," and so I let him live another day. Or he let me live. This might not be a gamer rule everyone knows, but if you know, you really know, and you've learned there's just nothing to be gained in hassling the chickens. Number 1, the clues to a second stage boss fight. The cooler a boss looks and the later in the game you face them drastically increases the probability that this particular fight is gonna roll into a second stage. Games are already pretty across the frequency of multi-stage boss fights, but if a video game boss has a lot of foreshadowing, a special arena, a gorgeous design, or they crop up really late in the game, then just go ahead and take that health bar as a guideline and not an expectation. All this means is that you're a few good hits away from a short cutscene that sees the already threatening baddie lose their crap, get even more terrifying looking, and unleash everything they've got on you in one final attempt to make sure you're the one who gets dead and not them. This goes double if you start to hear orchestral music start to swell in the background. If that happens, look for cover and just consider using one of those expensive buff potions just this once. That's the end of our list, but let me know down in that comment section if you can think of any other unwritten rules that every gamer knows. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like, you can say hi to me on my Twitter account where I'm @JessMcDonnell, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more gaming goodness.